and welcome to another episode of The Focal Thought. My guest today is Sarah Routman. How are you, Sarah?
I'm great. It's a Thursday, which means it's Chocolate Thursday. So I'm always happy on Chocolate Thursday, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Yes, Thursday is a special day for you, right? Chocolate Thursday. What is that for you?
It's a day to celebrate chocolate and laughter. And it started back in the days when I was working for a nonprofit with college students. We were looking for a way to get students in the door, a little bit of tempting bribery. We brought chocolate recipes, chocolate taste tests, different kinds of candy bars, whatever. And we let them know that on Thursdays we were going to celebrate chocolate. And so years later, when I no longer work there, I'm reminded every Thursday, oh, it's Chocolate Thursday. So I try to infuse my day with some kind of chocolate. And recently I've been investigating healthy chocolate and working with some chocolatiers to do some serious taste testings with companies and people. And it's just a nice way to celebrate the day. And of course, I laugh every day. So to me, laughter and chocolate is the perfect pair.
And that's awesome. I mean, any reason to have chocolate for breakfast. And I think by that regard, every day is a Thursday for me. So,
Well, and you know what? If you eat too much chocolate on a Thursday, you know what that's called?
what's that?
Chocolate Friday. So keeping in line with what you were saying, every day is a good day for healthy chocolate. And of course, dark chocolate would be the preferred healthy version of chocolate.
Of course, of course. No, definitely. So I wanted to ask now, chocolate bringing smiles on both of our faces. The topic of today is laughter. And you're a specialist in laughter, if I, may use the formal term as a specialist. You do laughter yoga, which is something I want to, get into with you about. Now, laughter, the dictionary definition, it's a physical reaction, they say consisting of rhythmical, audible contractions of the diaphragm and the respiratory system. So a lot of times people laugh, they don't know why they're laughing, but they just consider it a reflex action, right? It's a reflex to a stimulus, it's a response from a stimulus. And we can laugh two ways. We can laugh intellectually, when we hear a joke, or we can laugh when we're triggered by something, something physical like a tickle. And we associate laughter with comedians, with humor. People love to laugh, and it's not often that we think of it really as somatic therapy. So it's really a bodily function, laughter, as well as of the mind. But it's something where, like the definition, where diaphragm is moving up and down, your respiratory system, there are endorphins in the brain that are secreted when you laugh. So really it's somatic therapy, by that token. So we don't think about this, as I mentioned, we're based on the intellect of laughter. So how did you get into laughter, and how did you set up something like laughter yoga?
Well, laughter yoga was founded or created in 1995 by Dr. Madan Kataria, a medical doctor in India.
Yeah.
And I found him in a very strange sort of way. In 1993, I was living on the bathroom floor of my daughter's hospital room. She had an immune deficiency, and I was living away from my husband and two other kids. And he came to visit, my husband came to visit one weekend, and there was a big colorful poster on the wall. It said, "I love you very much." And he was holding my 18-month-old daughter on his lap, and he was pointing to the poster. And when he got to you, he said, "I love you very much." And at you, he started tickling her, and she started laughing. And in that moment, I was transported from that hospital room and the dire circumstance of her immune deficiency. And, this 18-month-old child is living on machines and things like that. She wasn't living on machines, but, hooked up to them. And I was transported into another place. It was as if she said, forget all this, come with me. Let's go out and play, and let's just be a kid, and let's be in this moment. And we laughed and laughed. And I just knew in that moment that something was different. Like, I had laughed before. My grandmother used to tell me to have a sense of humor about things, but, it was just different. And years later, my older daughter had a friend who became a laughter yoga leader. She invited me. I went. It was very strange at the beginning. We're told to laugh on purpose. We're looking at each other rather strangely, about 40 people, mixed ages. And by the end of 45 minutes, we had gone from being told to laugh on purpose to genuinely laughing to not being able to stop laughing. And when I walked to the car, I was like, oh my gosh, this is that laughter that I was looking for. And I need to do this, and I need to share it with people, because the basic premise of laughter yoga, and I like to describe it as heavy on the laughter, light on the yoga. There are no special poses, no positions. It's not a traditional yoga in the way that you think of yoga. It's really learning how to laugh on purpose. And you did a wonderful job explaining about what laughter is, and take all of that and then do it on purpose. Like, it is your body's normal response, but when you can figure out how to do it on purpose, it's very, very powerful.
Got it. And that's the key thing with laughter yoga, is that it's starting with purposeful laughter, right?
Absolutely. You are making a decision that you want the health benefits of laughter, of which there are many, and I can go into that in a minute. But when you decide you want to bring laughter to a moment, then this teaches you how to practice laughing every day or laughing on a regular basis, so that when you need it, you can bring it into your world and your moment.
Got it. Just like they say, sometimes if you're feeling sad or depressed, force yourself to smile, and that one
Yes.
small facial movement can change anything. So same with this, right? Forcing yourself to laugh can change as well.
Exactly. And laughter is a very social thing. So if you're going to try this, it's really important to try to do it with someone else. That said, I think about 30% of Americans are living alone right now. And so if you do live alone, you can always call someone and say, will you laugh with me? But also you can use a mirror. You can make little finger puppets. You can use your imagination. But we tend to laugh much more easily when we're laughing with someone else. And so even when we're, watching a movie or something, when there's someone to share the laughter with, it tends to be easier and happen more often.
Got it. And I like that you mentioned, laughing with someone else, because, part of the human experience is bonding with people, connecting with people. There's the emotional attraction, connection, and you share many of the experiences in life together, whether it's where you go out to a pub and have a couple of drinks, or, if you're sort of working together, you go through the work experience. If you're on a road trip, different settings, and, you do different things together as well, eating, drinking, there might be an activity, thinking on the spot, if that's part of your work. But then sharing a laugh, it's very different from, you just watching a TikTok video and laughing, but sharing it with that person, it's almost like sharing a meal, right?
Oh, it's such a wonderful thing. In fact, research tells us that if you share laughter with someone, especially if you're making eye contact, you are much more likely to share honest things about yourself, whether you've laughed with strangers or friends. And laughter sheds your inhibitions. And smiling too, when you smile at someone, it's as though you're inviting them into your world. It's like you're saying, I recognize you, let's connect. And actually, when Madan Kataria created laughter yoga, he really wanted it to be seen as part of a peace movement, because when you laugh, you can't be angry at the same time. And so if you take down the barriers, you shed your inhibitions, you're now going to be more trusting of someone. How can you be angry? You can't be angry and laugh. So when we teach people how to laugh together, we really are creating a very deep connection and a bond that is different than pretty much everything else.
Sure. And, that's where the magic happens, right? So if you meet someone, it's not about just, talking to them, it's sharing an experience. So maybe you'll both, maybe slip or fall down together. You'll act goofy, and, the laughing as a result of that, that's where you're actually connecting.
Right. And in fact, they talk about relationships are more successful if there is more humor or laughter in the relationship.
Got it. Okay. With you mentioned humor. Humor, I find personally, is mathematics. Jokes. If you actually scientifically dissect jokes, it's really math, right? It's it's the surprise element of, 2 plus 2 not equaling 4, right? That 2 plus 2 might equal 1 or 5, or, it might get even more abstract than that. I always tend to think that you should try to be open towards having a sense of humor, because laughter and jokes are so powerful. You can take the most dire situation, and if someone cracks a joke, it almost relieves you of that emotional tension that's in that moment, right?
Well, it's interesting because jokes can be very cultural and jokes can be offensive, and not everyone has a great sense of humor. However, you're absolutely right in that the laughter that happens as a result of that humor can really help you in a dire situation. And that's really the crux of what I try to do, is that because some people don't have a sense of humor, because some people's lives are really challenging and they may be very unhappy, the learning how to bring forth laughter can really allow them to have the benefit, even though they don't have a sense of humor, even if they don't think it's funny, because just laughing sends serotonin and dopamine, those feel-good chemicals in your body. So laughter, when you do it for, especially if you can manage to do it for 15 minutes a day, but laughing in general helps increase your oxygen and blood flow. It helps you become less sad, less anxious, less depressed. So a lot of these dire situations, we get very caught up in the mental conversation of, negative self-talk or being afraid. And when we laugh, you indicated in your very beginning, you talked about it being stimulating the diaphragm. And that's exactly what happens when you laugh. You stimulate the diaphragm, which then stimulates all the other organs in your body. And when we laugh, sometimes our body, as you indicated, does it naturally. Like in an uncomfortable situation, we might find ourselves laughing, or at an inappropriate time. Laughter is this gift that we've been given to help our body get back to a sense of equilibrium. So at a time when you're feeling it the most, that you shouldn't have it or nothing's funny, that's when you want to really invite laughter into your life so that you can start to feel better. And then your head is cleared so you can think better or more clearly about what to do about the problem or the challenge that you have.
Sure. And I imagine the clearing is happening because, with the body moving, so, that sort of somatic activity that's happening, it's actually just moving that energy, into you and then out of you, right?
Yes.
Wherever it's going.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Why do you think some people might not have, a sense of humor, that's indicative to, to enjoying jokes and things like that? Is it upbringing or, conditioning or hard knock life, things like that?
I think it's probably a combination of many things. Right now, I just calculated the 4th year of working on a book about laughter with my sister, and she's my identical twin sister. And one of the things that we discovered in the writing of this book is she had some early situations in life that were particularly challenging regarding laughter. And I'm not going to do a spoiler, I'm not going to tell you the story right now. But if you have in your life an experience that that becomes negative surrounding laughter, maybe it's somebody laughed at you or poked fun at you, or maybe you had a great laugh with wild abandon and you got criticized for it. There can be any number of situations, but if you have in your early life some bad circumstances that happen to you, then that can color your response to laughter at all for a long, long time. And until you can uncover it or have a different experience, then it can be really challenging.
Got it. Yeah. And I personally myself, like, I grew up with, the comedians who were famous at the time, such as, Eddie Murphy, Russell Peters, etc., who specialized in, making jokes about, cultural situations, racial backgrounds, things like that. In today's time, those jokes, wouldn't fly as well. But I think at the time when our generation was dealing with, race and prejudice, and every generation deals with race and prejudice, in its own lifetime. True. But at our moment in time, I personally tend to think that these comedians, because they spoke about this in a humorous way, they were sort of able to, prick the balloon and get the tension out of the air. And we were able to joke about it, but, you have to know that you're only joking about that. You can't, take that and, take it out into the world. And because it was humorous, right? It was just poking at things that might be culturally true in terms of stereotypes, things like that, but just having a laugh about it, right? Because I think if you didn't, then that pressure would be intense. And, those stereotypes that do exist, that would actually cause more harm than necessary.
Well, one of the most beautiful things about laughter yoga, and I think the reason that I'm drawn to it so much, is that when we do laughter yoga, there are two rules. And the first one is eye contact. And again, you can use your imagination for that if you can't actually be in front of someone. But the second rule is you really suspend judgment of yourself and everyone else. And you agree to come to the table with the idea that we're going to support each other in laughter. The reason that's so important, and by contrast to humor a little bit, is that when we are telling jokes, often it's at somebody's expense, or we're laughing at something to make fun of someone. And you talked before about, people not having a sense of humor. If you've been laughed at and poked fun at, then it can be really hurtful. And that's your association then with laughter. So by creating an environment that's safe, where everyone is accepted for who they are, now you really bring laughter in a much different way. And it makes it so that you more freely laugh in all other areas of your life, because it's become safe. And so that's why it can be so powerful, that laughter does have this great way of taking the tension away and giving you a clearer view of a situation. But if you're not poking fun at anyone, and often when we have those kind of stereotypical jokes, a group that's being poked fun at, they'll say, well, we can tell that kind of joke, but you can't tell about us,
Yeah. No, that's true. And, to go to an extreme too, it's, if you have the clean jokes, the corny jokes, the puns, the dad jokes, as they call them today.
Right.
Some people actually don't find that funny, right? And some people actually get, offensive that it's not funny, right?
Right, exactly. And that's why the difference between humor, like really only 20% of laughter comes from humor. We think it's a lot bigger than that. We have a very strong association with laughter and humor, but you always run the risk of it's not funny. Like I'll be in a funky mood and I'm like, I want to see a funny movie, and I'll go to watch the movie and I keep watching and watching and watching, thinking it's going to be funny, but in the end it wasn't funny. Or you go and pay money for a comedian and you're offended, right? It's not funny. And so by calling up laughter and you create it yourself, then it's a more powerful place to be, because then you're not relying on the chance that you'll think something's funny, or that you have some other trigger. You trigger it yourself, and it gives you a powerful position to start from.
Sure. And I almost find it that you almost have to transcend your own psychology and maybe your philosophy with your beliefs when you have to maybe want to be open to all kinds of humor. I remember going to an open mic night once where they had amateur comedians, and it was very interesting to see, they might have had about 4 to 5 different comedians do, 10, 15-minute sets. And, there was no rules, there was no policy on what they could speak of. And they spoke of everything, you name it, race, dark humor, corny jokes. And it was very interesting to see that in that room, just for those couple of hours, everyone had immunity from, what they were able to say. It's almost like they had this free speech pass, and no one got offended. Everyone laughed. And if the joke wasn't funny, they didn't laugh. And, this is the other comedians sitting in the audience as well as the regular audience. So it's very interesting to see something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes we laugh not because it's funny, but because someone else is laughing and we want to connect with them. And that can be, sometimes if you do go to see a comedian and you don't think it's funny, or you didn't hear the joke even. My mother tells a story about how she was listening to a comedian and everyone was laughing. She didn't hear it, but she got caught up in the laughter anyway. And later found out and enjoyed the laugh all over again, So it can be interesting when you create a safe environment of any kind. Then I can imagine that the laughter flowed pretty easily. In a way, it would have been really interesting to see the reaction of both the audience and the person on stage if what they said wasn't funny. And sometimes one person thinks it's really funny and everyone else is kind of looking at them and not sure. So it's good that in that place they created a safe environment for it to be okay.
Correct. Yeah. And you're right about that because, with jokes, it's subjective. It can be abstract. The comedian delivering it has a total different, point of view from the person receiving it. Right. So
Right.
there might be sensitivity issues involved, maybe because of a past trauma, things like that. So there's no one size fits all with laughing like that.
Right. And, sometimes you have those inside jokes, right? Where two friends or a group of friends, they had a shared experience and it's hilarious to them, but everyone else is like, what's so funny? And yet you can catch yourself starting to laugh because, they're laughing, and laughter is one of those beautiful things that's contagious.
Sure. And I didn't know this, but there's a whole field of study of human laughter called gelatology,
Yes.
with its psych benefits, its physiological effects on the human body. And, when we look at babies, if you make like a scary face to a baby, they'll laugh at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know it's scary till maybe later on, with watching movies or people scaring them that they invoke fear, and they've been conditioned to know, okay, now this scary face is actually scary. But before, they might think it's a clown face or something like that, right?
Right. Well, I think babies in early stages laugh for two reasons that I know of. One is the element of surprise, right? So when you talk about, making faces at a baby, it's a surprise to them. They're learning about the world. But also they laugh as early as 3 to 4 months because they understand that as they laugh, we're giving them that positive reinforcement. We're laughing with them. We're giving them a lot of, positive acknowledgement. So they laugh more. So they laugh early as a way to connect with us and get our approval and get positive response.
Got it. And it's a back and forth. The baby laughs, we laugh, the baby laughs back, and that builds up momentum
Right.
also, right?
Yep. And who doesn't love a baby's laugh?
With humor, it's always fascinated me that the illogical is funnier. So 2 + 2 equaling 5 is very funny to us, but and we can laugh at that. But when we're sort of being serious, 2 + 2 better equal 4. So any idea why that is? Why we find things that don't add up, or the element of surprise? Why we might find that funny? Because the best jokes have a story going along, and then when they hit the punchline, it's not what you'd expect, right? It's again that element of surprise. And
I suspect, and I'm not positive about this, but I have been doing a lot of research with this book. I have a feeling it has something to do with the fight or flight response. If you think about back in the day, we had to learn for our own survival to expect certain things. And if we know that our body will react with laughter as a way to protect us when we're uncomfortable, laughing helps us find that equilibrium. There are even stories of people who have survived very dangerous situations by laughing, because the laughter helps get the tension away and helps get them focused on what they needed to do. And feel like it can almost prevent a panic attack. You're changing the way you breathe and so on. And so I suspect that element of surprise that you talked about, which is necessary for a lot of humor, probably triggers something in our DNA about, as we laugh, it's giving us back that sense of calm, that sense of safety, and then we can go on. So I don't know for sure, but that's what it would seem to me.
no, that makes sense because again, laughter, especially with the chemicals that are secreted, are going against the chemicals that cause stress, like maybe cortisol or norepinephrine, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Do you have a routine for writing jokes and a philosophy for writing jokes? Like I know, we've heard recently of Jerry Seinfeld, who says, he writes every day, and he hasn't stopped since, and he builds up momentum with the writing every day, and the deeper you go in, the better your craft becomes, things like that. What's an example of maybe your philosophy and routine for writing jokes?
Well, I don't write jokes. I don't tell jokes. The
Okay.
only jokes I tell are jokes by number. And that means I imagine that all the joke tellers in the world created a book that has all the jokes, and each one is assigned a number, and all I have to do is say the number. So one thing that's really important to know about laughter yoga is I am not telling people jokes.
Okay.
I am teaching you how to laugh on purpose, how to laugh deliberately, how to find laughter in your body and bring it up. And one of the things I do every day is I'm on Facebook Live every day for 20 minutes, and we've been moving up. We started at 5 minutes. We're up to 7 minutes now. I just set the timer and we just laugh. And that means sometimes I might imagine something and that might trigger the laughter, or other times I'm just generating the laughter sounds and the laughter comes. And like anything else that you want to do well, you have to practice. I couldn't always just generate a great big laugh, but now it comes really easily. And when you practice laughter yoga, the more you practice it, the more regularly you do it, the easier it is to bring laughter to your day in other instances, like things that used to stress me out, losing my keys, having a flat tire. It takes very little time, if any at all, sometimes now, for me to find the laughter in it, and it's not that it's funny. It's not funny to have to spend a lot of money on a broken air conditioner or flat tire, or be late for your meeting because of the flat tire. But what you start to realize is the stress that you bring to it only gives you stress. It doesn't help you. But when you bring laughter to it, it does help you, because you clear your mind and you realize when the tire's fixed, I'm going to get there. But in the meantime, I don't have to live in stress. I even do a lot of work with hospice patients and healthcare workers, because even if you have a diagnosis of cancer, which is a horrible thing, however much time you have left in your life, if you bring laughter to it, if you enjoy the day, if you do something that's important to you, then you just have a better quality. You can sit around and wait to die, or you can figure out some way to enjoy today. And even there's gentle finger laughter that I do with people who don't have a lot of energy because of being sick or being depressed. So
that's important. I like that you mentioned with the hospice clientele that might as well bring some joy to yourself in the final weeks, months, years that you have, rather than be stressed about it, right?
Right. And listen, I'm not against humor by any means, but for those people who can't tell a joke or don't have a sense of humor, don't despair. Laughter is still readily available to you, just in a different format.
Well, I mean, with what you're doing, you might just be able to put the comedians out of business, because if you don't need, the jokes to laugh, you've gone straight to the punchline, right?
That would be so great. Yeah. Well, listen, I've never really thought about trying to market myself as the comedian with no jokes, but it's something I have to think about.
Yeah, just get up on stage and just laugh, and go straight to it.
The world's best comedian, no joke.
And with this, I mean, again, when you have a sad situation, a depressed moment, a dire moment, if you're forcing yourself to laugh, again, it's not being disrespectful to the moment, like you're saying. It's just bringing out, the anti-stress, fighting facilities to help you cope with that brief timeline, right? The moment in that timeline.
Right. And in that moment, I'm not going to be talking to someone about, well, let's think about this isn't so bad, or this happens for a reason, which I don't believe anyway. But, I'm not talking to people about their situation. I'm just talking to them about the physiology of laughter and what happens. And then I'll teach you how to do some, like we can do it. Start with a laughter breath, and you breathe in through your nose. And as you exhale, just simply say the word ha 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 over and over until it becomes laughter. And it can be hard because you're not used to it, but the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. And I'll be laughing, so then you'll start to laugh, and you'll feel a little awkward and silly, and then you'll start to laugh. And before you know it, we're having a good time. And now we have a shared moment, and now we have a deeper connection. And now you forgot about that thing that was over there that was causing you so much stress.
Wow, no, that's really great. And at the base level, out of all of this, with this philosophy of laughter yoga, some people might not need, encouragement from, say alcohol or drugs that, help you sort of loosen up, lose your insecurities and, give you that encouragement to laugh, right? It sort of gives you that sort of trigger push to start laughing. You can just, do it yourself. You can force yourself to get into laughter. And the end result of that is joy, right? So you can actually control joy at the end of
Oh,
the day.
yes. I'm so glad you brought that up because I love making the distinction between happiness and joy. Happiness to me is something very subjective, and it's, do I have a good job? Do I have a good relationship? Are things going well in my life? But joy, I mean, we could all give you a list of things that are not going well in our lives. We all have challenges. Everyone's just looks different. And maybe today everything's perfect in my world, but tomorrow it's going to fall apart. We never know. But joy is something we can bring up from inside ourselves, and it might be buried, but as soon as we unleash it, then it comes out, and you can be so joyous and filled with joy even when everything around you looks like it's not good, and that's just such an important thing. And you talked about the power. I have a colleague who does a lot of work with addiction and recovery with laughter yoga. And, if you're going to be addicted to something, then be addicted to laughter. There are no side effects, right? And it does put you in a huge position of power. I can't really say enough about that. If you take a drink and, now you feel good, but then you're going to feel bad. And then it's doing damage in the inside of your body. But with laughter, you can still feel that same giddiness. You just have to practice till you learn how to do that. And then in the moment that you need it, you find it. And there are, by the way, free laughter clubs all over the world in over 100 countries. And when you become a certified laughter yoga leader, you are asked to create a laughter club that is going to be free for people. Mine happens to be on the phone on Monday mornings for 15 minutes. And I've been doing it for 7 years, and people come and go, but there's also a close-knit community that is pretty much regular. And that's true of many laughter clubs around the world. So if you're looking for connection and community, even on Zoom or on the phone or on Facebook, it's just a wonderful way to connect. And then you walk away feeling great. I just had this shared experience.
No, that's great. I mean, that's awesome. I'm glad that, there's something like this out there. And, thanks again for coming on the episode and sharing your work with us. And if people want to get a hold of you and find out more about what you do, where's the best place to reach you?
The best place is my website, which is Laugh Healthy, and it will be 2 words, but all, together, laughhealthy.com.
Laugh Healthy. Okay. And I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Great. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you about my favorite subject.
Thanks.
And on Thursday too. So make sure you indulge in some laughter and some chocolate today.
I will definitely at the end of the day sit down with some TikTok videos with some pranks and a bar of chocolate.
That sounds fantastic.
Okay, thanks again, Sarah.
And look for me on TikTok. I'm on TikTok. Follow me there too.
Okay, I'll put that up as well. That's great.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. All right, bye-bye.